And thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Okay, so, but we're already old friends, right? These are the ladies that we've been learning, we've been learning together for a while. So I'm just going to jump into the text. I'm going to share the document that I set up, which includes, let's see, let me try and make this a little bit not quite so broad so that I can see people's faces. I prefer to whatever extent possible. Okay, very good. Now, so let's go to the from the beginning. Alyssa provided me with the Pesukim that are used during the process of Tahara that was distributed. It looks like it comes from the Chabad Kaddish of the Vad of Queens. And if there are any variations in practice, depending on which communities people are in, so you'll have to forgive me because I asked for whatever would be the most, standard nusach that's available. Okay, so the first part, this breaks down overall. I broke down all of the Pesukim that I was provided with into 3 separate stages because we have 3 sessions. And the first is from the beginning of the process until the Tahara is completed. After that, for the next meeting, we'll be going through the Pesukim associated with the dressing. And then after that, the third is for the preparation of the bringing the nifter to the Aron. So we have in 3 stages, it works out actually in terms of the amount of material that there is to see. Hopefully we'll have enough time to actually go through everything. I hope so, Bezrat Hashem. Now, so this breaks down into basically, the first set breaks down to basically 4 parts. The first is while removing the sheet. Now, this, I don't remember if we spoke about it here because I taught Zachariah this year. So did we speak about it or we didn't speak about it? About the Begadim Tzoim? I think we might have a little bit, the filthy garments. I think we did in one of the classes.
We did. We talked about taking the sheet off as being the beginning of the process, and yeah.
So I want to give a little context because what we're doing today is really just providing more context and depth of understanding of each of these Pesukim, and that you have more to work with in your mind and in your kavanas while you're doing the process and while you're saying them. So the first pasuk, Vayan Vayomer Ela Omdim Lefanav Lemor. And he spoke up and he said to those who stood before him, saying, Hasiru habgadim hatzoim me'alav, remove the filth encrusted. Tzoim means literally with feces. The feces encrusted garments from off of him. Off of whom? What is the context of this? So this is part of the vision of Zechariah. And he had an interaction with an angelic, interlocutor that was the voice of Nevuah speaking through him in his vision. So the great prophet Zechariah, the second to last of the prophets, had a vision that had to do with a specific individual whose name was Yehoshua Kohen Gadol. Now this was the generation of those who had gone down into Bavel and had returned from Bavel, right? So we're talking about the beginning of the Second Temple period. In fact, the foundation of rebuilding Yerushalayim has already been laid. And the Jewish people at that point are in a place of having sinned. Like there were many Kohanim who had intermarried and married Bavli wives. And there's some discussion whether it means they had intermarried or they married women who weren't appropriate for the Kehuna. Maybe they were, it's not that they were not Jewish, it's that they couldn't marry Kohanim, whatever it is. So Yehoshua Kohen Gadol had been a tzaddik, who he was a righteous man, and he had sons who, while they were in Bavel, in exile, had married women, as Rashi says, which is from the Gemara, who had married women that were not appropriate to marry the Kehuna. Exactly what that means, we have some dispute about. And so their actions, meaning the children's actions, were considered to be in heaven, like on the spiritual plane, a kind of schmutz, dirt that had adhered to the father's soul garment. And so he's standing before in the vision, and he's going to be the Kohen Gadol. Like they're inaugurating a new Beit HaMikdash, and Zechariah has this vision of the fallen Jew, right? The Jew who's fallen, And then there's this beautiful voice that comes to him in his vision. Hasiru habgadim hatzurim me'alav. It's time to take, he's already gone through his tshuva. He's already had his tikkun. He's already been cleansed by the fires of his experience in exile and all that he has regretted. And so it's time to take off these filth encrusted garments from him. Vayomer elav. And I said to him, this is Zechariah telling in the vision, he's telling Yehoshua Kohen Gadol, Re'eh he'evarti me'alecha avonecha. Behold, I have removed from you your sin, because the filth encrusted garment is the sin. V'halbeish otcha machletzot. And I have dressed you in shining, clear, brilliant garments, right? So that first process of the encounter with the nifter, with the nifteres, and preparing yourself in your encounter with this Jew, is that it's in your hands, this last like stage in the body of kind of gathering together, we'll see, gathering together also the yisurim of the ends of a person's life, like everybody they go through their lifetime, all the things that they go through. And it's really something it's quite wondrous that in the Chevra Kadisha is sort of wrapping up all the threads of a person's life. We've spoken about this together. You didn't know the person. You don't know this woman. But she's gone through whatever she's gone through because death itself is such a kapara. Right? Death itself is so atoning. And so now it's time to take away all of the schmutz. It's time to get rid of all of the dirt. And that's the first encounter. It's like everything's been paid for. You've already gone through everything you've had to go through. It's now time to put you in fresh garments in preparation for your future, right? And so that's the first context here. And that's the beginning. Shall we go on? Okay. Now, depending on whatever is the custom in the place where you are, either the Pesukim are said, the next set of Pesukim from the 5th chapter of Shir HaShirim, it's the end of the chapter from, mid to end. They're short chapters in Shir HaShirim. There are 8, in Song of Songs, there are 8 chapters. And what I will see, one of the things that's very interesting about this is that, chapter 4 is where Knesset Yisrael is praised, where the collective soul of the Jewish people is praised, which is spoken about in the feminine in the verses. And chapter 5 is when Knesset Yisrael, is when the soul, or the Jewish people as a whole, praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so it's language of praise of the male, right? And we don't change, like these Pesukim are the Pesukim that are said for the parts of the body. Now, it's said either while each limb is being washed or after the entire washing, depending on how you do it and whatever is your place. But one of the reasons, which I didn't have an answer for, why there's not more incorporated in the Nusach for women from Perek Dalet, from the 4th chapter, and why it's from Perek Hey. I don't have an answer for that, because there is more language in Perek Dalet of the feminine body, and it could be that it was specifically for that reason that it's elided from the Nusach, that it's removed from the Nusach, because it's specifically about the feminine body, and maybe too evocative and seemingly too evocative for the process of Tahara, even of a woman. But I think, practically speaking, what makes, this is just my own speculation, a lot of sense to me, is that Perek Dalet past a certain part of the body, past the torso, there's no more description of the body. It's broken up, it's disjointed. Irene, yes?
I just want to ask you, are they the same Pesukim that the men say for them?
I believe that men say exactly the same Pesukim during the washing. Yeah. So there are other Pesukim that are specifically relating to women, like they go through the whole body pretty much, very similarly, but it's not in the Nusach. And my gut feeling is that it was considered to be like not exactly a Lashon Nikiya, too evocative of the feminine form. But that's my guess. Okay, but I didn't speak to anybody about it, but that seems to me Mati. Now, so that means that when we're looking into the meaning in the Pesukim, what we find is that these are psukim, these are verses that are talking praise of Hashem or praise of the Torah. There's multi-levels it can be read upon. And I try to extract mainly from the Malbim, although I'm going to go through it with the also basic pshat from Rashi. Although Rashi's straightforward meaning, he says in chapter 4, there's no real pshat, there's no real straightforward meaning in Shir HaShirim. There's no real straightforward meaning in Song of Songs because it can't be read literally in any case. So as you're thinking about the verses and in the process of the washing, so it's also, as we've spoken about before, in general terms, with this recognition that every part of the body is a part of the Tzelem Elokim, right? And so the image of God is a spiritual construct and literally embodies qualities that are spiritual qualities. And so that's where your focus is, because the physical body, like, is literally the embodiment of something much, much higher. That's where the soul is housed during its time in this world. So we start, and everything is always moving down, right? Moving down. So you go from head to eyes, to cheeks, to hands, to thighs. And then there's a general statement at the end. I should have broken it up. That's one pasuk I didn't separate. And that's a kind of general closure for all of the praises of the body, literally going from the head down to the legs. Okay, so we'll start from the beginning. Rosho ketim paz, his head. Now again, you're dealing with women, but it is a general terminology that refers to everybody. His head is ketem paz. Ketem. I just want to make sure, Irene, I'm going to lower your hands because otherwise it's confusing, just to make sure you don't have a question. Okay. Rosho ketem paz. The paz means gold. And ketem means, it's like from the language of katom, which is orange. It means it's like a rich gold, a most precious of gold, right? So his head is like the head. Let's say I'm not going to say his because I'll say that. The head is like this massive mass of fine gold. Kvutzotav taltalim, the hair, which are called kvutzot because hair tends to descend, where even for us Ashkenazic Jews and straight-haired Jews, so the original ethnotype of the Jewish people is like, the curly ringlets, what you call in Israel the bislim, they look like bisli, kvutzotzav taltalim. So those gatherings of the locks, right, that the hair is in clumps, it's taltalim. Its natural state is taltalim, is curls. Shcholot kol rev, black like a raven. Now, so let's take it apart. Now, the Rashi says these are all beautiful praises, like you'd praise somebody beautiful, right? The whole thing is about the beauty of the body and how each of these qualities, they're not body qualities, they exemplify higher qualities. So first of all, with the head, I'm going to go down to the Malbim. Now, the Malbim is talking about the Torah, the Malbim is talking about Hashem. There's very, very deep stuff in this Malbim. I only extracted tiny little bits that could be useful to us. But let's think about what the head is. When you have a person's head in your hands, you have the place of the precious treasury of the repository of their thoughts and intentions, right? This is the place where their thoughts and intentions were secreted throughout their lives. And that's the idea of the ketem paz, is this precious fine gold. And the Malbim says down here, I'm going to just keep a highlighter on so you can see, right? The Tahara is a ketem paz. Why is it called this fine, like rich gold? Haketem hu eshet makshe. It means that it's a dense mass, and that's telling us that, like, just like you can't know what's at the innermost place of this mass because it's hidden from you, because it's within the mass. So too, that like from the outside it looks like a monolith, but from the inside, like, you can't know what preciousness is secreted in there. And the same thing, when you have the head before you, say, this person spent a lifetime with their good thoughts, with their good intentions. And here I am appreciating all of the treasure house of the thoughts and what was in their mind, right? Kvutzotav taltalim. Now here is very important because here, we might have talked about this briefly, we couldn't have spent too much time on it. They're called motre moach, the strands of hair that come out of the head. Now, we know physiologically Your hair is not coming out of your brain, right? Did we wind up speaking about this before? No, your hair is not coming out of your brain. Your hair is coming from the cells of your scalp, from the follicles of your scalp. But al pi sod, in the Kabbalistic tradition, we speak about the hair as being they are channels, they represent the channels through which that which in your head is communicated out with the world. I mean, for the head covering, that's actually according to the Tzemach Tzedek. So that has to do with his explanation of why women cover their hair, why married women cover their hair, about Mosar Moach, meaning it's about the expression of what's in the mind and the way that it communicates, because hairs are tubules, they're channels, like a se'ar is a sha'ar, is like a gateway. And so everybody has unique gateways. And kutotav talim, this idea of, it says in the Zohar Kadosh, that everybody has different hair. The texture is different, the color is different, the way in which, whether it's curly or straight, everything about it is different. And that's uniqueness is about that every person's communication of their innermost thoughts and intentions of their secret mind, right? Everybody has a different way to do that in the world. And that really has to do with the influence of one's thoughts. So the hair itself is also an appreciation of the means through which a person in their lifetime managed to fulfill this great purpose of communicating what was in their holy mind out with the world, to whatever extent that they did, And then here, Shchorot Kol Rev, we'll just keep it as being, I'm not going to get into the shacharut of it, the blackness of the hair, otherwise we'll never get anywhere, so we'll leave it at that. Einav ki onim al afiki mayim. The eyes are like doves that are upon streams of water. Now, the idea being that the doves are these faithful birds, right? And they go upon the streams of water because they need water. And the eyes are like with an eye of tmimut, of trust, this kind of trusting eye of the eye of the dove. Because we know that the dove has two qualities that the sages told us are very important qualities. One is that they mate for life, they're faithful, and the other is that they're not mitparkes, when they die, when they're slaughtered. They don't go into death throes. They don't thrash when they're slaughtered. They go quietly to the slaughter. And the idea being that the Jewish people are compared to doves because we can accept the pathway of martyrdom in a faithful way that's calm. And so this is something that so the enav keonim al afike mayim is like that every Jew has within them, like the trusting eyes towards Hashem, the faithful eyes towards Hashem, even if they didn't know it. I don't have to know the history of the person. I don't have to be able to testify what kind of life they lived, exactly what they did or didn't do, because the assumption is, like you're going to come to at the very end, Tahorahi, that she started off, this woman who's before me and I'm with, she started off from the place of purity and holiness, and that's where she's going back to. So all of the potential that was within her of being the holy Jewish soul that came down into this world, it's all there, and that's where I'm staying, my focus. And they're rochatzot bechalav. It means they are washed in milk. That means to say in kindness, those loving, the eyes of kindness. And yoshvot amilet, and they sit properly. Yoshvot amilet means they're not hypothalamic and they're not, they're not exothalamic and not, there is a, like not bulging eyes and not sunken in eyes, but just eyes exactly as they should be, the orbs inside of their sockets. Means to say with a clarity about vision of what's real and what's important. And like, you're ushering a person into Olam HaEmes. Like, that's the place of the true vision. L'chayav k'ogat habosim. The cheeks are like a patch, in the garden when you have a little area in the garden. So that's called an awuga, a little, what do you call it? I'm a gardener. I can't even remember. It's a patch, yeah. So a patch of herbs that give off, beautiful scent. Migdelot merkachim, that place, it gives off wonderful smells. Now, so here we're talking down, you've moved down to the area of the cheeks and then the lips, from thought to perception, right? Or now to the place of speech. So that's the cheeks. And that we say, oh, this person's cheeks, they said so many good words in their lives. there's so many encouraging things to say, which is considered like perfumed air that comes out of the mouth and it spreads, right? Like, like it says at the beginning of Shir Shirim, that and it spreads mikdalot merkachim in that garden patch. You're raising remedies. Merkachim is things that are crushed down for remedies, like that the apothecary has. Siftotav, the lips, are shoshanim, they're like roses. Notfot more over, and they drip with myrrh that is of such high quality that you can trade it. Now, because it's a resin, myrrh is a resin. Now, what's the idea of the lips that are like roses that are dripping? It means like you have here a Jew in your hand, this Jewish woman in your hands, and she's imlo neviim him, b'nei neviim him. The lips dripping, or in chapter 4, means the capacity that the Jewish people have for prophecy. Like this is a holy Jew whose mouth, whatever they did with their mouth in their life, but in essence, like they could have Ruach HaKodesh flowing through them. That's how holy this person could have been, or had the potential to be, or is in essence, right? Is in essence. Now we move down. Yes, Alyssa.
So I just want to clarify, when we say these Pesukim and we're washing the Nifteris and
Yes.
we're holding the head and we're washing the hair and we're going to the eyes, it's so quick. We do it so quickly. We have an idea, I don't know where that comes from, that we don't look into her face. So it seems that there's a little bit of a rush to wash the face.
Because it's not considered kavod hameis to keep the body uncovered for any longer than absolutely necessary, right?
Right.
So So I recommend cultivating a mindset that I call, sometimes I call it slow fast, and sometimes I call it fast slow, which means that it's like when you are fully engaged, you can be doing something in real time, which doesn't take a lot of time, but because you're fully engaged and your mind is full and your heart is full, so you actually can fit a lot more kavana in the process. You don't have to take a lot of time over it. See, a part of the greatness about learning the Pesukim well is that you don't have to think through. It's like somebody who's used to saying Tehillim all the time. So people will say, if you're saying Tehillim in an hour and a half, a whole book of Tehillim, it takes you an hour and a half, an hour and 40 minutes. How on earth can you possibly have kavanah? And the answer is no. I've been spending 30 years saying these Tehillim, and at the beginning it took me a long time, and I've learned through them carefully. Like as long as my mind is focused, I can be saying it very quickly and still be fully aware of what I'm saying and be present in what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Okay, I hope it answers the question. Yadav glilei zahav. Okay, so now we're moving down to the realm of action, right? Like here, down to the realm of action. So really, yadayim is the end point. The hands are the end point of the place that really starts at the shoulder, right? The zroa and the yad, which is all of the realm of action. And so I say this person's actions, this woman's actions, that she should be accredited and acknowledged for all the good actions that she did in the world. And everybody has a whole lifetime of good actions that they are mekadesh the body with. Like really, what's going on here? You're sort of picking up these sparks of all of the ways in which this person, this Jew, was sanctified the body and uplifted and illuminated the body through good action, good thought, good speech throughout their lifetime. And everybody has a whole history of them. So the hands are like wheels of gold, memula'im b'tarshish, filled with precious stone. Me'av eshet shein. Now we move down to the realm of the torso, right? That the me'ayim, the area of the belly, is like a block of ivory studded with sapphires. Now let's think about first the realm of the hands has to do with the actions. What does it mean going down to the place of the belly? So the Malbim says something powerful. He says, me'ayim, me'ay hamu alav, me'ay chamamaru. There's a few different times in Tanakh where we talk, that feeling of deep compassion and being moved by somebody else's plight, pathos and compassion. Where do you feel it? You feel it in the belly. Your kishka is kind of overturned with compassion for somebody else. So that's also an acknowledgement, not only of what the person did, but also the innermost feelings that brought them to do good actions that they did. That's already down in the place of the me'ayin. And it's like a eshet shein, a block, a solid block of marble, which shein is the ivory. Well, some people would say ivory, marble. Sheish is marble, shein, ivory. So say ivory. So the idea of the ivory is like it's smooth, it's clean, it's white, it's good, right? It's not that it's rigid, you know. Me'ulefet sapirim, and studied with sapphires, because it's not monolithic. It's like a person's, that whole area of the place that's really driving them, that area of the gut, right, of what they do and why they do it, and all that innermost motivation. It's me'ulefet sapirim. It's studied with gemstones. It's studied with sapphires. There's so many different points of goodness that brought the person to do the good things that they did in their lives. Next, the thighs. Shokav amule shesh. The thighs are, pillars of, here it's the shesh, is the marble, and they're founded upon adnei paz, and their foundation is on like sockets or bases of gold. Now remember, where was the gold? The gold was up here, right? At the head. The head was the fine gold. But now we find all the way at the bottom, the base of the legs, which is like the feet, those are also gold. How does that happen? Meaning, how did we jump from the top down to the bottom? And how can it be? So here, we'll look at the amalgam down here. סוף מעשהו ואחרית מסובביו הוא העולם המוגש עם עמודי שש, רוצה לומר. שש קצוות העולם, הם מיוסדים על אדני פז. עד שראשו כתם פז מגיע עד השוקיים. Now, this is a very, the Malbim is talking about a Kadosh Baruch Hu, but the lesson there is also very relevant because they're talking about the Tzelem Elokim. It means that when you talk about the legs and the feet, we're talking about not only the realm of action, but sof maaseh. It means to say the outcome of the actions, the down to earth, the nitty gritty, the ground zero of a person's life, where they're 2 feet on the ground, tachlis, right? But what is it founded upon? Kesem paz. It means, remember what it was? All those deep intentions, those deep thoughts that were hidden in the mind, secreted away. But they come out and they come to be manifest in the person's actions all the way down. Now, what do I mean by this practically? So practically speaking, it's like sometimes we do things, sometimes we wind up doing things, we don't know what's driving us, we don't know what's really pushing us. And we say, we have the assumption that a Jew's intentions are good, and that the actions that they take are motivated by good intentions. So it means to say, when I'm looking at a Yid, I say, no, the innermost part of this person is good, it's pure gold, right? And then when I see that they do something, I make this even if it looks sometimes to me like it's not that great, I say, but there's a whole process of being done the chafskus of no, but their intention really was good. No, but in their innermost thoughts, that's really, they meant good. And so that's something that we see also, that the shokayim, what appears to be the lower, like the bottommost result of the action, right? But it's really miusad. It's miusad. It's founded upon gold, pure gold. Now we go to the general language. Mar'ehu kalvanon. Already we're speaking the entire appearance of the person, right? Is kalvanon. It's like Lebanon. Now Lebanon comes from the language of Lavan. It's going to come up again. Is Lebanon doesn't mean Lebanon. It means from the place of the whiteness, of purity. It means always the purity. Ma'el kalvanon, bachur karazim. Bachur here, a bachur, means like a young man, but bachur means choice, right? Choice, like the arazim, like the tall cedars. Like, I'm looking at this person, I don't do the Chevra Kadisha work. I'm sure that you are dealing with all the time people who come who are not in the condition of Bechor Ka'arazim, right? And so you say these words, and it's like you're restoring the Nifteris to the state of wholeness and choiceness and beauty and grace that is their original state, that is the state of that is natural to them. Chikom amtakim, and now we speak about the totality of the person. Chikom amtakim, his palate is sweet like candy. Rashi Chazal said about this, when you know that the palate is sweet, so it means the entirety of the person is going to be a delight. That's the kind of language that Chazal used. That means to say it's a general statement of like once you know something, a quality, a prime quality of a person, that it's good, then we know the whole person is good. Entirely, the person is entirely machmadim, is entirely desirable and delightful. This is my beloved, and this is my companion, my mate, also my beloved friend. O Benot Yerushalayim, O daughters of Jerusalem. So we have gone through the relevant Pesukim in Perek Hey, and I hope that everything holds together in your minds and that it's providing some insight. And we can go on. Okay. And I left the language of the Malbim and so on and some of the Rashis, and just for your own reference, to as notes. Okay. Now, so depending on custom, before or during the Tahara. Yes, please.
Yeah, I just want to mention that I really just recently finally memorized these Pesukim after many, many years. It makes such a difference to me now when I say it. I could say it as we do each part of the body. It just made such a tremendous difference to me, to that whole process. It's like it was very difficult to memorize. Shira Shirim is hard,
Yeah.
but it was really worthwhile.
Then I want to tell you, Kol HaKavod.
Anybody who could try to memorize it, it will really give you much more feeling during the time of the Rechitza.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you so much. Yes, I mean, I sort of took it for granted. I should never take anything for granted. But I sort of assume that everyone understands the importance of having the Pesukim available to be able to
We always
be able to say them in. Pardon me?
The person who says tefillos, if they didn't know them by heart, which is most of the people, then we would say it. The Rosh would ask the person to say the whole selection of these Pesukim before the Rechitza. But I see how it makes such a tremendous difference when you say
that's what we saw in the Mavaya book. He said very clearly that they're supposed to be said during the actual, while doing the actions. And he said and he said very clearly that the more you know about the Pesukim, the better it is for the nifter. So
Thank you so much.
Now, the Pesukim that are said before or during Tahara, depending on how depending on how you do things in your place, wherever you are. So they are not Pesukim, all of them per se. The first is a Mishnah in Yuma. Now, it's a familiar Mishnah because I think it's a fairly familiar Mishnah because I don't know, I'm from Israel, so this is like Lag BaOmer. Everybody sings this all the time, Lag BaOmer, and it's like they made songs about it. Amar Kiva, Ashrechem Yisrael, like these are fairly well known, but I'd like to take it apart bit by bit, and then we'll see what's yielded. So the Mishnah in Yuma says, now again, context is everything. Okay, so this part of the Mishnah in Yuma, I think it's the last Mishnah of the Perek, actually, talks about forgiveness and the forgiveness, the ways of atonement of Yom Kippurim, and achieving forgiveness and kapara through the forgiveness that comes from Hashem, and also by making amends to other people. And it's the kind of capstone Mishnah of the Perek, if I remember correctly, which goes through all of the pathways of forgiveness. So once we understand the context, saying the Mishnah makes a lot more sense because it's not only about the water, right? I mean, all of these are about water. All of the references, we went from the new garment, right? Starting the process of the Tahara, that was the first part. and then all of the psukim that have to do with the body as you're going through the chitza, and now during the tahara, it's all about the water. Now, so this Mishnah, but we have to take it in context, is not only about the water, it's about forgiveness, meaning the water, the cleansing water is a pathway to purity and forgiveness, which the Chevra Kadisha is privileged to share and to shed upon, like to be the agents of the flowing waters, the Mayim Chaim, even though it's not Mayim Chaim, because Mayim Chaim has a very specific meaning in halacha and in the Torah, which we'll talk about when we get to it a little bit further on, very soon. But you get to be the agents of the flow of water, which is the ultimate of all. Well, I guess we'll talk about it in class at some point, but which is like my father, Zichron Livracha, used to, say the water is the universal solvent. Now, I had a chemist in one of my classes. She was an old student. And when I used that in class, she looked and she said, actually, and she gave me the name of the alcohol that chemists call the universal solvent. And I said, yes, but before they had gotten to that ethanol, that particular ethanol, subtype that they now use as universal solvent. But that's what water was known as, because it's the place of dissolution, right? Dissolution, the sense of dissolving something, taking that which was an impediment, dissolving it down. And as everybody knows, when you're cleaning for Pesach, before you start with bleach and before you start with anything else, just boil up the kettle. Boil up the kettle and use the hot water, right? Now you're not using hot water, obviously, but it's a thing that's like the obliteration of the old and the introduction of the new, like in the womb. Amar Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said, Ashreichem Yisrael. Oh, fortunate are you, Jewish people. Lifnei mi atem metaharim, mi metahar etchem. Before whom are you purified, and who purifies you? Avichem shebashamayim, your Father in heaven. Now remember the context. The context is the forgiveness of Yom Kippurim. So it means everybody's whether we're talking about the end of a person's life or whether we're talking about every person in their whole story, throughout their whole lives. So we're always in need of the Mayim Tahorim, of forgiveness, of tshuva, of kapara, of atonement, forgiveness, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu so very abundantly sheds upon us and shares with us. So the Rabbi Akiva, what is he saying? Like, oh Jewish people, do you believe what a people you are? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is himself your cleansing water, as it says. Now, B'zorakti Aleichem is from Yechezkel, and we're going to see it down below. It's going to be separate as a separate pasuk, but here it's used as a proof text in the Mishnah. How do we know that Hashem does this for us? B'zorakti Aleichem Mayim Tahorim, and I will toss upon you. Zarakti, we'll see what the deeper meaning of this is later. I'm not going to go through it now. That's the end. V'zorakti Aleichem, and I will throw upon you pure waters, and you will be cleansed from all of your various types of impurity. Now, gilulechem is an interesting word in Hebrew because gilulim is means idolatries, but it also means like a turd. Sorry, excuse my language. That's like in Hebrew. Glil, it means like a roll of something, and so if you find droppings of a cat or something like that, so those are also called gilulim. And there's a reason why, because we've already said that from above in the language in Zechariah that it's like the refuse, it's like the dross of a person's life and the sins that they've done. So that's tantamount to the feces, and so that's the association, the idolatries, the sins. That's why it's like the stuff that you need to just get rid of. You don't have a use for it. You need to eject it. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I myself, v'zorakti, I throw upon you, I will throw upon you the water, the cleansing water that will purify you from all of your various impurities. And all of the gilulim, it means all of this, the incrustation of the filth. I'm going to ataher etchem. I will purify you from this. So, and then the second proof text is necessary, right? Because it says, V'zorakti aleichem mayim tahorim in Yechezkel. Why do the sages bring two verses to prove a point? They don't bring two verses unless they need to bring two verses. So the first one only tells us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will shed the water, but what's the water? Omer v'omer, we have another pasuk, mikveh Yisrael Hashem. Hashem himself is the mikveh of the Jewish people. Now, okay, Uma mikveh mitaras atmei. What does a mikveh do? The mikveh, it purifies the impure. Af HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitar et Yisrael. So too does Hashem purify the Jewish people. So here you are, members of the Chevra Kadisha, and you become the agent of sharing this water, right? Of throwing the water, because you're using buckets for the Tahara, correct? Now, so you're using the buckets, which is really extremely powerful, because the whole idea is, we'll see from the Malbim when we go through the Pesach a little later on, is that if a woman has to be purified from her nidut, we'll say, from the tumah of being a nida, she has to immerse, right? Now, the preparation of Tahara is evocative of a type of Tahara that's actually, like, what is the context of this pasuk in Yechezkel? I guess I'm going to wait until we get there, because it's coming up anyway. But it's really talking about the ultimate future. V'zorakti isn't something I did in the past. It's not something that I do now. It's something I do in the ultimate future, Hashem says. That I'll do this act of cleansing with mayim tahorim that's like, it's not the way we normally do things now. Okay, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more soon. Let's move on to the pasuk in Shirashim. So this pasuk does come from chapter 4. And I said chapter 4 is the praise of Knesset Yisrael. So we do have a pasuk that comes from there. Ma'ayan Ganim. A Ma'ayan. Now that's the Mayim Chaim part. Ma'ayan Ganim, a spring in the gardens, a garden spring, a wellspring of Mayim Chaim, of living waters. V'nozlim in Lebanon. Here we have Lebanon again, and they trickle down from Lebanon. So Ma'ayan Ganim Ber Mayim Chaim. First of all, Mayim Chaim, there are seven different types of bodies of water that can be kosher mikvaot. Does someone have a question? I see that a chat came up. Okay. There are 7 different types of bodies of water that can be used as a proper mikveh for cleansing from midut or from tumah in general, depending on if we lived in a time when we were careful about tumah. But when it comes to the Mayim Chaim, a wellspring, an actual spring that is producing constantly fresh water, right? It's not a gathering of water, but fresh water. So Mayim Chaim is actually necessary for the cleansing of a particular type of impurity described in the Torah. And it's considered to be, like, of all of the 7 types of waters, the most powerfully cleansing. It's only indicated as necessary in one type of tumah, but it's considered to be the most powerfully cleansing. Why? Because it's mamish live water. It's living waters that's coming forth from the ground, constantly refreshed and refreshing itself. Not a gathering of waters, but constantly refreshed. So when you are saying the verse, Ma'ayan Ganim Be'er Mayim Chaim, it's like, this is, you're holding buckets, you're shedding buckets of water, but those buckets become, in your hands, they become like the most powerful form of dispelling tum'ah that exists. Now, of course, you're not dispelling tum'ah because you're talking about the nifter, right? The body is the body, and it's still conferring its tum'ah, right? It's doing, you haven't dispelled anything. But the idea is, you're not talking here during the Tahara about being mitar from tum'ah, about purifying from ritual defilement. Rather, it's about the soul of the person and its last attachment to the body, that it should be cleansed with the waters are, I don't want to say representative of, because it's not really about, it's not symbolic. There's nothing symbolic in the world. Everything it's analogous. So you're carrying out a kind of physical analogy of what's happening on high, that the soul of the person in its process of detaching fully from the body as the body is going to be going into the earth, that this is called Tahara, even though the body is itself a makor of tum'ah. You understand? Like we're talking about the soul in its relationship to the body. That's where you have what to give. So it's not that you have to bring them to Mayim Chaim, and it's not that you necessarily even have to put them in the mikveh. Even though you're going to use teskabin, you're still going to use your 9 measures, because you want it to be the minimum. It should be it has to be the minimum number, the minimum amount. But nevertheless, it's not so much about the actuality of the water as it is you're the agents of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, his promise that when a person goes through their Yisurim and they leave this world, that they actually that they're forgiven at their clans. Like that's in your hands. Okay, let's go on. Ishayahu. Someone had a question? No, okay.
So when we throw this water, I mean, we say this before we throw the waters, right?
Yeah.
So
preparing, yeah, depending on how it's done.
So I guess the kavana to have is fill in the blank.
That you are, imagine yourself, do you ever go to the Tzafon? Do you ever go to the north of Israel? Like to the Ramat HaGolan, in Shvat, Adar? So I'm telling you, it's really beautiful up there. So you can go to a place called Gamla. In Gamla, there's a waterfall. Gamla is where there was a synagogue a long time ago. It's still got remnants there, and the Jewish people there fought off. They lived on the spine. It's called Gamla because it's like the back of a camel. And they lived on the spine of this mountain and fought off the Romans for years, men, women, and children. Anyway, so and the eagles are there. The griffin vultures are there. So, and they come right close to you. It's really quite amazing. I highly recommend visiting Gamla. So if you go up to Gamla and you follow the trail, so you're going to find yourself at this beautiful waterfall, or go to Banyas, right? Or any of the places, especially in Shvat, Adar. That's when the water is really coming down usually, and it's cool. It's like the purity of the water and the cleanness of it. That's you. You might be just women, with buckets of water, but you're that spring. You're that waterfall. You're those cleansing waters that are rushing down from the head all the way down to the feet of the Nifteris in a kind of a full washing away of everything that's the dross that's been accumulated in this person's life. That's what you are. So you're not the bucket. You're not. You become the mikveh. You're the agents of this mikveh, of mikveh Yisrael Hashem. And the kindness, it's a chesed shel emes. And the kindness of devoting your minds and your hearts and your bodies to this task, you become HaKadosh Baruch Hu's agent to carry out in the physical plane that which is happening on the spiritual plane. He can't do it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't do his work without emissaries. He has shluchim, and the shluchim carry it out. So imagine yourself, like with those buckets, so the rushing waters of the waterfalls of Banyas, of the streams of Ramat HaGolan. Okay, let's see. And if you haven't been to all these places, next time come to Eretz Yisrael. Okay. Next, Yeshayahu Perek Daled, Pasuk Daled. אם רחץ השם את צועד בנות ציון ואת דמי ירושלים ידיח בקרבה ברוח משפט ברוח באר. This is a very, we're going to look down and see the Rashi here because I found it very powerful. I want to see inside. So im, first of all, im, the word im has a whole bunch of different meanings in Hebrew. There's actually, im can mean 4 different things in the Chumash. So Rashi clarifies for us right away, ki. Rachatz, yesh im mishamesh ki, or kain. He says kain or ki. Im can be conditional, if, right? Im can sometimes sound conditional, if. Rashi corrects us right away. He says, no, don't read this as if. This is not an if preposition. This is a when. It's a yes. It's going to happen. So it means when Hashem cleanses here we are with our word again. So at Bnot Zion, again, the incrustation of the filth of the daughters of Zion. He's going to wash away the blood of Jerusalem. That means to say all of the signs of dinim, all of the marks of the places where we've made so many mistakes. Mikirba, how will this be washed away? Because here we are in the language. There's no there's no water in this pasuk, right? We would expect that in the Tahara, we're going to hear about the water, but there's no water here. It's done biruach mishpat uvuruach ba'er. It's done with the spirit of justice and with the spirit of ba'er. Now, ba'er, leva'er, something in Hebrew means to remove something utterly. Bi'ur means to, and it means even to burn it out sometimes. It's from the language of be'era, is a fire, like a kind of cleansing fire. And when you see it, you think, what is this doing in the Tahara? It's no water here, right? Except for the language of rachatz, washing or cleansing. So what is this doing here? But I think that this is a place where there's a lot of room to really pay attention because if we look under the word here, right? Tig-elet. So the language of feces or filth, it means that which is repulsive, the things that are disgusting, they're going to be removed. Klomar, Hashem he'evir avonam, Hashem will have removed their sins al yidei yisurim ubi'ur min ha'olam. Like every person who comes to your hands, right, as the Chevra Kadisha, there's no such thing. Like every person leaves the world, it's their own story. It's a whole story, right? What they went through in their lifetime, what they went through close to the end, what they went through at the end. So it's and we'll say it could be mostly unknown to us, right? It's unknown to us. Nevertheless, there's no such thing as a person who didn't suffer abundant yisurim. When you're doing the Tahara, when you say these words, kirachatz, right? Im rachatz Hashem etzoat b'not Tzion v'admei Yerushalayim b'ruach mishpat v'ruach ba'er. It's like you're affirming every single bit of discomfort, every single bit of disappointment, every single bit of pain that this person went through in their lifetime. It has been through that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has removed the weight of their sins throughout their lives. Because the main thing is to get them into the next world, ushering them into the next world with as clean a slate as is possible. So even though the language doesn't bring us to anything of water, nevertheless, it's a kind of cleansing water. But here we're talking about the Yisurim. And it's not only what they went through in their death or just prior to their death, but actually everybody's gone through innumerable painful experiences, innumerable suffering in their lives of whatever type it is. And so there's a kavanah there of this is part of their cleansing waters. This is part of what cleanses them. And I want to be able to appreciate this in them. It's not wasted. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was meaningless. Every single thing that they went through was important and necessary for them. And it's going to be helpful to them. It's meva'er. It drives out the sin it drives it away from the world. Okay, next. Yechezkel. Here we are back to our verse that we had before. Now, I had said earlier that there is something curious here, because Mayim Tohorim, in the world in which we live in now, okay, Mayim Tohorim, what are called Mayim Tohorim? That's I have someone very close to me. When her kids were little, and she would be talking on the phone to me and saying something about the mikveh or something having to do with the mikveh. Her kids didn't understand Hebrew, so she would say, "Yes, when I was last in the Mayim Taharim." So she didn't want to use put the word mikveh in the house. The kids will start talking about the mikveh. Anyway, a mikveh is a place of Mayim Taharim. The water is pure. It doesn't stop being pure, right? A woman goes into the water anida. She doesn't contaminate the water, right? Quite the contrary, the water cleanses her. She comes up at Tahara, and that's how it was always when we lived according to the laws of Tum and Tahara. Now, Mayim Tahorim can't be thrown. It's like you don't toss Mayim Tahorim. Mayim Tahorim you have to immerse in order to be able to be cleansed. Something that is Tameh, in order for it to come out of its state of Tum'ah, of impurity, it has to be immersed. What water does get thrown? Well, we have one type of cleansing water, which is not called Mayim Tahorim, because it's not Mayim Tahorim, it's Mayim Tmeim. It's impure water, and that's the water that's used to cleanse from the impurity of death, of contact with death. And that's dafka sprinkled, it's hazayah, right? It's not immersion. It's done through sprinkling, and I'm talking about the water that's prepared from the ashes of the red heifer, right? So that's not called pure water. Never is it called. It's called mechatat. It cleanses, but it's never called mayim tahorim. It's not called pure water because it's not pure water, because one of its paradox, its main paradox, is that the person who carries that water for no reason becomes tameh, right? So it's not the water is pure, because it also has this paradoxical influence that it purifies the impure and it makes impure the pure, right? So it's not that the water is pure, it's that it has a kind of property to it of removing the tuma of tumas mace, the purity, the defilement from death. Now that water is thrown, but it's never called mayim tahorim. So the Malbim tells us, this is talking about the ultimate future. Nowadays, yes, it's true. If you're in a state of impurity, you have to immerse fully in order to come out of the state of impurity in mayim tahorim for every state except tumat meh. And in the ultimate future, it's not going to be like that. You see, nowadays, the idea of zorak lechem mayim tahorim is like, you just need a little mayim tahorim, I'll just throw it on you, I'll toss it on you. That's really the depth of the pasuk. And then with that little bit of sprinkling of the pure water, which normally nowadays you have to immerse in fully. No, in the ultimate future, just need a little bit of that water. I'm going to remove everything I'm going to take away from you, all of the sins, all of the messes. So the Malbim tells us, well, that's what it means. And this time, the person who wants to do teshuvah, what do they have to do? What do they have to go through in order to bring them to a full state of teshuvah? But in the ultimate future, it's going to be easier to do teshuvah, not harder. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to throw upon us this little bit. You don't need a lot, a little bit of the pure water, and it's going to affect the kinds of changes and the kinds of teshuvah and the kinds of cleansing that nowadays you'd have to go through a lot of very deep work and very hard work in order to be able to affect it. Now, when you're using this pasuk, when you're reciting this pasuk, when you're with an iftaris, so it's like a taste of the ultimate future. Like this person did whatever they did in their life. This is the closure of your pesukim. So of this section, this person did whatever they did in their lives, and all you are is throwing a little bit of water. And Hashem promised there's coming a time we're kind of borrowing from the future, when even this little bit of water, right, this little bit of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's the generosity of his purity that he's sharing, so it'll be enough, it'll suffice. So it's a very powerful closure, because again, you're the Chevra Kadisha. You're sending out, now we're up to the last part, right? At the conclusion of the Tahara, the custom is to say 3 times, Tahorahi, Tahorahi, Tahorahi. Now, it means you have finished your Ishtadlus of the Tahara. After that, it's just like, it's more preparation for burial. Tahara is finished. So it means Tahorahi. You're like the Balanit in the mikveh, who stands above when a woman goes to Toivel, and she says, kosher, 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 right? That the Balanit, the attendant in the mikveh, she says kosher, and what does it say? In Svarim we say, even though I don't think it's in the Talmud, that when the mikveh attendant says kosher down here, so on high, it draws upon her Tahara from on high. She's kosher. And when you say Tahorahi, like that's what you mean. You're affirming this, Tahorahi, Tahorahi, Tahorahi. Not just that we've completed the Tahara, but that she's Tahara. She's Tahara. And it's like the language of, like I wrote here, of Elokai Neshama. Elokai Neshama Shnasata Bi Tahorahi. Ata Virasa, Ata Yitzata, Ata Nafachta Bi, Ata Meshama B'Kirbi. Like this, the Neshama of this person never, ever, ever got dirty. This is the essence of Elokai Neshama, Tahorahi. This is the Neshama cannot get dirty. The only thing that happens is the lower nefesh can get encrusted. That's all the language that we have of the dirt and the filth and the feces and the this and the that. It's external, it's incrustations that have to be washed away. You're doing the tahara, you're doing the rechitza. That's what you're doing. It's a way of affirming again and again. It was only external. Whatever the person did in their lifetime, they didn't do it. It never touched the essence of them. The essence of them, tahorahi, tahorahi, tahorahi. And that's what you're sending back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I think we're done.
Can I ask you a quick question? It sounds like
Yeah.
it'd be better to throw the water than to immerse in a mikveh.
So based on the Pesukim, yes. But it's interesting, based on the Malbim, what I told you. But the Mabim is a way of helping to explain and give kavanah for the practice that we actually do. And if I was going to go looking in the Mavaya book, so he would all have other things that he has to say about doing immersion in the mikveh and how that's the thing to do. So whatever it is that becomes the practice, there's always a depth of that is to be gleaned, you know, that you can focus on.
So when we say Tahara, we're saying that through what we've done, through this water, through this throwing, through all of this cleansing, we're declaring.
She's Tahara.
the
We finished the
Tahara.
process. Yes, we have helped the neshama to atone. But Tahara, the second way of thinking about it is like, well, what did we do really? We're just going back to what she was. Tahara. She was always Tahara.
Because it always seemed very oxymoronic to me that we're saying that she's tahor when she's a mace.
Exactly, because it's not about the body. You're not being metapel with the body. I mean, you are obviously being metapel with the body. That's no question. But the care of the body and everything you're doing for the body is not about the body. I mean, the assumption is that until the closing of the grave, the soul of the person is there with you. The soul of the person is experiencing what you're doing. It still has connections with the guf. It still has connections with the body. And everything that you're doing is on every level exceedingly important. So it's true, we think about it in terms of karames. The soul was once in the body, and out of respect for the soul, we take care of the body. And it's true. But actually, like you are in a communication, a conversation with the body and the soul of the person who's in your hands. And it's really the chesed shel emes, there's no words for it, because like, remember that chesed shel emes, that aleph mace? I love that. It's like you bring your adam, you bring your living self to the mace, and you help restore that mace to the perfection of their human self. It's like there's no chesed, this is higher than this. And not everybody can do this work. And that's the thing. Not everybody can do it. It's a special shlichus. It's really such a special shlichus that you have. Ashrechem, 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 ashrechem. I'm so jealous. I told you my story about wanting to work. You know, so at least hopefully I have a chelik in some way with what you're doing. Because I live in Yerushalayim, and like, unless you're, you know, like part of certain families, and you don't get to do work in the Chevra Kadisha, is like it's a closed circle here pretty much in Yerushalayim. So it's not likely that I would get in. So at least I have I hope I have a piece of what you're doing.
I definitely feel that the what you're teaching us and the kavanos that we can have now, and the much deeper understanding that we have when we're doing a tahara, is definitely in your tzachas.
So it's I have to tell you, it's really a very beautiful thing that when new women come into Chevra Kadisha and you know, and you're sharing with them the work, share with them also what you learned. Like, you know, give them, let them start off in a way that where they already have a more to bring to the practice.
Unbelievable lecture.
Be'ezrat Hashem, so we have more to do. Irene, I see your hand is up.
Yes, I just wanted to say or ask, I mean, given that we personally are not pure, is it the fact that we come as a team together gives us that ability?
First of all, the custom is that women were only working in Chevra Kadisha after they were already past menopause. That was the original practice.
That was so beautiful. Oh, God.
And women who are postmenopausal, even though not in every community is this possible, because it depends on how many women there are on hand to be able to do the work. So, but the idea of a mesuleket damim, a woman who is already past the age of having her menses, this is considered to be a woman who is the prime spiritual point of her life. Postmenopausal women, according to Sifrei Kabbalah, are like are at the like best place in their life. No more fluxes, no more ups and downs, just straight, steady purity, like the best state. So I heard one of the Rabbanim that I know is a Kabbalist, many generations, a very, very big person. I asked him about women learning a particular sefer, a particular work. And he said, no, it's not really so much. They said, if she's not menstruating anymore, so okay, if she's already postmenopausal, yes, she could, it's okay. So what do you mean by impurity? Everybody is affected by tumas meis. All of us are assumed to have in some way come in contact with the
Still listening, but I don't have to look.
All of us
What
are.
is it?
That's the assumption. And so it's not so much about avoiding, right? We're not avoiding. Only Kohanim have a specific mitzvah that they have to avoid contact with the dead. It's not, no one else has a prescription against it. And halavai, right? The chamiti, the machiti, dema mikol mipanayich, that hopefully HaKadosh Baruch Hu will soon, wipe away all the tears from our faces, and that, we'll already be past the time altogether of any kind of tumah in the world, any kind of tumah at all, especially the tumas meis. But that's what we're all hoping and praying for every day, right?
Okay. All right.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you
for what
so
you're
much.
doing.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you to everybody.
B'simcha rabba.
Please God, we'll see you someday, and then whenever it is, the
Mitzvah Shem.
24th of
Yes,
October.
Hashem. So
again.
we'll have more to talk about the water.
Absolutely. Okay.
Terrific.
Bye-bye.
Have a
Thank you
great
so
day,
much.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Shalom, shalom.